Gather round, kids. It's time for me to tell you a story about how I killed my Sony a7S III and brought it back to life the next day. Like Jesus, but it was just one day instead of 3. If you've watched my recent wedding filmmaking behind the scenes video, you'll know that it started like this. Welcome to the thunderstorm. The wedding in a thunderstorm. And my camera's already completely covered in water. My camera started glitching out real bad. And the BTS ended like this. But this wedding turned out so good. Even with maybe one of my a7S IIIs dying because of the rain, everything else flawless. No complaints here. That's what insurance is for. So a lot of you have been asking about this, commenting, messaging me, what happened to this camera? So here's the story. Let me start by talking about my general experience when it comes to rain and cameras. Unlike some people, I'm not afraid at all of getting my camera wet. As far as I'm concerned, if I can get an amazing shot, I'm going to go for it, even if it's raining. Plus, I always bring along a backup camera in case one fails, but up until now, I've never really had one fail, even in pretty heavy rain. And because I've been braver with my camera and willing to experiment and go out in the rain, I've been able to get a lot of cool shots from a lot of cool weddings. So I have no regrets there. And as I said in the BTS, that's what insurance is for. If my camera dies, I'm willing to pay the deductible to have it repaired or replaced. So this leads us all to Holly and Luke's wedding, which had rain unlike any other wedding that I've ever filmed in my 10 years of filming weddings. In short, this was a lot of rain. We're talking 100% all day, only briefly stopping in the middle down to 90%, and also, at the most crucial point, the ceremony, it was raining the most. And as I said, I'm not afraid of the rain, so I was out in it pretty much all day. My wife Rachel and I started the day filming establishing shots, and during that, there was a light to medium rain falling. Definitely not just a sprinkle, and more than some people will be comfortable with, but I had shots that I needed to get, and I did end up using them in the final wedding film. We were out there in rain jackets with our cameras uncovered, getting the best shots that we could, wiping off our lenses whenever they got too many raindrops on them, and I hear you now saying, Matt, why don't you just use a rain cover? Don't be dumb. Well, I would love to use a rain cover, but I have yet to find a rain cover that will work well on my camera that's also on a gimbal. And because my camera was on a Zhiyun Crane 2S gimbal for pretty much the entire day, I did not have the option of using a rain cover. So let's get to the ceremony now. And I want to paint a picture for you of how much rain was coming down during the ceremony and why things were so difficult. Here are some example shots that I filmed with my a7S III. As you can see, it was incredibly intense, heavy, pouring rain. And the way that the ceremony site was set up, the chapel where the couple got married did not have any sort of rain protection at the front where the wedding party was entering, meaning that if I wanted to film the wedding party coming in, I needed to be out there getting rained on. So I was. Just me and my gimbal, fully exposed to the rain, while the wedding party had nice clear umbrellas that I was honestly a little jealous about. I got the family walking in, I got the groomsmen, and I got the bride walking in, all in 4K at 120 frames per second. The footage looked amazing, and I think it was completely worth getting soaked over. Once the entrance was done, and I was under the roof of the chapel, I thought the worst was behind me. I was protected from the rain as the ceremony kept going, the rain began to lessen, and I thought I dodged a bullet and my camera was fine. But about 30 minutes post-ceremony, we decided to push things just a little bit more and get some shots of the couple outside in the rain again. At this point, it wasn't raining nearly as heavily as it had been before the ceremony, but it was still coming down at a pretty reasonable rate on us. And this is also the point where things got bad. As soon as we were done filming the couple and we began to walk back inside the reception hall so we could get ready for the couple to enter the reception in the next 2 minutes, That was finally when disaster struck. It was at this point that my camera began flashing up an error message on the screen that said, "This accessory is not supported by the device and cannot be used. Please verify the compatibility with this device." The camera would still power on, but this error message would immediately appear, and if I pressed OK, it would then immediately reappear again. Now, I didn't have any other accessories connected to this camera. It had been on my gimbal all day, so why was it suddenly giving me this error? All I know is that this camera was now functionally useless to me, because it had some error that was preventing it from being able to record. As far as I'm concerned, this camera was dead, and I had no clue if I was going to have to send it off to Sony for repairs after the wedding. And, as I said, the couple was entering the reception in 2 minutes, so I didn't really have time to properly diagnose the error, figure it out, and fix it. So I went to my backup plan, and let this be a lesson to you. You always need a backup plan whenever the poop hits the fan like this at a wedding. In this case, my behind-the-scenes shooter was also shooting on a Sony a7S III. I have 3 of them, which is a lot, but that way I can film with one, my wife can film with one, and I have a third camera that my behind-the-scenes shooters can use. So I grabbed my BTS shooter's camera that was already on a gimbal, and because it's my camera, all the settings were already correct, and I was ready to shoot within about 20 seconds. I even had time to get my BTS shooter set up on my Sony a6400, which is kind of my backup for the backups. That way he could still film the behind the scenes of the rest of the wedding. And you can even see in the BTS footage that I'm now not using my Crane 2S gimbal, but my old trusty Crane 2, because I did not have time to swap gimbals between me and my BTS shooter. But hey, everything worked, no other cameras died, and we were able to film the rest of the wedding. So if you learned one thing from this, always have backups, and really backups for your backups. But as I did say in the title of this video is not only about how my camera died, but how I brought it back to life. And that's what you really want to know, right? So here's how I fixed it. And I'm going to tell you the short and dumb version of how it was fixed first, because I think it's hilarious. To fix the camera, I turned it off, left it off for a day, and then I turned it back on and everything was fine. Seriously, that's it. What the heck? How does that work? Well, here's the longer answer to how I revived my camera. First, let me say that I could have prevented my a7S III from dying completely in the first place if I had this tiny little piece of plastic right here. See, this tiny little piece of plastic comes pre-installed on pretty much every Sony mirrorless camera, and it exists to protect the hot shoe from getting wet. Do you see where I'm going with this? Well, I would assume, like a lot of people, that whenever I received my a7S III and took it out of the box, one of the first things that I did, other than removing the annoying little metal clips on the side, was that I also removed this little tiny plastic hot shoe cover, threw it in the camera box, never to be used again, and went about filming. But this hot shoe protector is actually really important, because Sony cameras have a little electrical connection buried up here at the front of the hot shoe, and this electrical connection does things like make your camera work with a flash, and also allows it to work with things like Sony's ECM B1M shotgun microphone and other accessories. So, can you imagine what would happen if, say, you had rain fall on this camera hot shoe all day? Eventually, one of these water droplets is going to make its way down into the camera hot shoe at just the precise point to bridge the electrical connection and make the camera think that there's an electronic accessory that is connected but is not supported. For some reason, Sony hasn't updated the camera to work with raindrops. I don't know. What I do know is that as long as the water was up there in the hot shoe, the camera was going to keep on giving me that error until it dried out. AKA, my camera was essentially useless for a day, at which point it dried out and started working again. It was also about a day later that I had time to Google this error message, and I saw this commonly came from an error with the hot shoe. I put 2 and 2 together, and clearly this is why my camera was busted. Thankfully, like I said in the short version of the story, once the a7S III dried out, it began working perfectly fine again with zero issues, and I've gone on to film lots of YouTube videos and other weddings with this camera without issue. But you better bet that if there is rain in the forecast, I'm definitely bringing these little hot shoe covers and putting them on my camera in the event that I need them. Otherwise though, I'm not going to be very concerned about the a7S III's weather sealing. I've now put it through some of the hardest rain ever, and I'm confident that if I had the hot shoe protector in place, this camera would have kept running flawlessly. Good job, Sony. And that is my story about how my a7S III died and how I resurrected it. If you enjoyed listening to this story, it would be a huge help to me if you would like this video and subscribe if you want to see more videos like it in the future. Hopefully not about cameras dying, but about Sony cameras and filmmaking in general. You can also watch Holly and Luke's full wedding behind the scenes series if you haven't already, which covers all of the insanity of their wedding day and everything that went into filming their wedding. I will include that down below as well. In addition, if you happen to be a wedding filmmaker like me, you probably want to book more couples and film more weddings, and I would love to help you do that. I've put together a free guide that's going to walk you through some practical steps that you can take right now in your business to book more couples and film more weddings. It's a completely free gift to you. You can download the link